Women and girls in Canada, the forced birth movement is here. Please take action. To my Canadian sisters and allies. Many of you have probably heard that someone in Parliament, the Conservative Cathay Wagantall, is trying to wedge forced birth into debate in Canada. The bill she introduced is C-311, and it follows her other attempts, C-225, C-233. These bills intend to create fetal personhood, the same strategy used by the Christian right in the US. We've been witnessing the absolute horror faced by women and girls south of the border, being systematically robbed of their reproductive freedom. Story after story of child rape victims being told they must stay pregnant, women in the agony of sepsis forced to carry a dead fetus and becoming sterile as a result, women nearly bleeding out from untreated miscarriages, threats of execution for receiving abortions. Not to mention, of course, the horrifying indignity of simply being denied control over your own body. Well, the Christian right is here too. They're in Canada. They're positively energized by the successes they're seeing in the US. We are in danger. Many Americans thought they were safe, and that everyone warning about attacks on Dobbs were simply being hysterical. Now many of them have no right to reproductive health care. It's time to take a stand now while we have a chance. Please write your MP demanding that Canada formally recognize the public promotion of forced birth ideology as a hate crime against women. Let us not entertain discussion of the forced birth movement any more than discussion of legalized mass rape. In a separate letter or email, please also demand they submit legislation to amend our Constitution to specifically codify the human right to abortion without exception. We may not succeed, but we must shift the Overton window and make it crystal clear that remaining in power depends on them keeping religion out of politics, and protecting the right to abortion and reproductive health care. Please don't wait. You can find your MP's mailing and email address here. I'm so fucking tired of these conservatives, destroying healthcare bit by bit, following the worst example of our neighbors down south. Vote. Edit. To be clear, the reason I'm putting emphasis on voting is because voter turnout in Canada is horrendous, even worse in provincial elections. I will never stop being shocked that the people who supposedly believe most strongly in small government and individual freedoms are also the most ardent supporters of forcing women to give birth against their will. I've heard the joke, a government so small it can fit in your uterus, but it just doesn't make sense unless you factor in the misogyny, etc. Wow. I'm in the US, but looking at Canada from my backyard, sleepy face, my solidarity is with you. Disgusting. We simply cannot let conservatives breathe power in any capacity in this country. I'm terrified to see what unveils as Poilievre ramps up. America's right-wing brainworm has worked its way into our country, and we need to be vigilant to vote it down at every level. I love this. We absolutely cannot take it for granted until it is constitutionally guaranteed. We can't have reproductive freedom depend on the judgment of a single court. It must be law. I'm actually in Jagmeet Singh's riding, so I'm pretty confident my MP will fight for women's rights. Please learn from our mistakes down here in the US. We've been shackled with at least another generation of backwards policy thanks to our abysmal Supreme Court, whose name ought to require air quotes at this point. I made this point a year ago and was told it could never happen. I am old enough to remember when abortions were not legal in Canada. When Dr. Morgentaler's clinic, in Toronto, was bombed. I stood up then, and I am prepared to do it again. These self-righteous, arrogant assholes have no business interfering in my business. Thank you for bringing it up. I just sent an email to my representative about this issue and how much I oppose C-311. There's a referendum for the Conservative healthcare changes being held in Ontario at the end of the month. We need to fight the CPC tooth and nail on every front. Vote, ladies, like our country depends on it. I'm from Ireland. Take it from us. Raise hell and be very, very loud. Make it clear there will be zero tolerance to any rollback of abortion rights. A well-written email is a favored campaign strategy of mine, and we have a lot of conservative politicians where I live. Oh dear God. Email sent. Thank you for your activism. I recommend to anyone who is 100% sure they don't want kids to get on long-acting birth control or seek sterilization. We just don't know if the Christian right is going to try to make birth control illegal. They have indicated that they want to. It will result in an explosion of abortions, but they're fine with that. While we're on the topic, just because abortion is legal in Canada, doesn't mean it's easily accessible. There's more to fight for other than just having it be legal. We need to make sure it's available to all. American here. I'm sorry. Can these fascists just fuck off of our bodies? It's going to continue to expand because it's a symptom of our global economy and the manipulation our rich overlords lobby for in their respective governments. We are fucked until we recognize that we are stronger together and that unregulated capitalism is the enemy. They need a workforce and we aren't breeding. I always thought Canada was a safe space for us. Hell, that's what I grew up hearing from my older fellow Canadians, but since 2020 I feel like Canada is suffering and we are no longer safe. The last good thing was the legalization of weed. Emo, maybe conservatives shouldn't smoke weed? This has some deep The Handmaid's Tale vibe. That's how it starts. Done. I copied most of your post and with edits, sent it to my MP, pointing out it is his party she belongs to. Conservatism is, and always will be, malignant. Don't let it spread. But I've been told dozens of times the CPC won't do this. Quell, surprise, shocked face. Of course they are. I'm so tired of people defending the CPC and saying oh but they are not like that anymore, sad face, when yes, they still ate. Email sent to my very conservative MP has so far gone unanswered. Weird. It is important to remind your MPs that they represent everyone in their riding, not just the rabid, forced birth evangelicals that voted for them. I actually had no idea about this. I've been in my own little bubble studying away in grad school. Are there resources about this I can read to help inform my letter writing? Just to understand completely, because I read those previous bills you mentioned. Is this how it started in the States? Because the bills are trying to make it so that someone can get charged for hurting a fetus in an act of violence against the mother. Is this their sneaky way of trying to get Canada to recognize fetuses as people and thereby slowly start to enact abortion laws? I just want to understand if this is how it starts. Yay, guys, protest, rally people against this oppression. BC, it's scary here in the USA. Every day, I can't believe I live amongst barbarians with too much power and people who vote with religion instead of facts. I can't wait for the new generation to start voting. BC, they're going to eat the current and older ones alive someday. But also, it's sad that I feel like it needs to rest in the hands of children who can't vote yet.